strong logistics for trade, and it is a strong center for investment. And we are seeing increasingly the global GDP is increasingly becoming overweight in Asia and Middle East. So that linkage with the middle income segments growing in India and China, they will provide a very strong market.
Tune in to Bloomberg Business Week Daily.
We got to talk crypto.
From the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead.
What's the conversation around your company?
Bringing you insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy.
Planning very big things.
A new level of premium.
Plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens.
The floodgates of innovation are going to open up.
You can't fake passion. You either are or you aren't.
Bloomberg Business Week Daily, only on Bloomberg.
Monday, the 1st of September. So we have heard overnight that the Prime Minister of Yemen's Houthi government was killed in an Israeli strike. It happened Thursday, along with a number of other ministers. The Houthis say the Prime Minister and members of his cabinet were targeted during a routine workshop held by the government. For more now, we're joined by Bloomberg's Jerusalem reporter, Dan Williams. Dan, talk me through the significance of this.
We've had 2 years of escalating long-distance confrontations between Israel and the Houthis of Yemen in parallel to the Gaza war. The Houthis, like other Iranian-backed militias in the region, are sworn to Israel's destruction. Specifically here, they say their attacks with long-distance missiles, attacks on shipping in the Red Sea that they associated with Israel, is an act of solidarity with the Palestinians of Gaza. Now, Israeli retaliation, Israeli attacks in Yemen, some 15 in number previously, generally focused on sites, on infrastructure, ports, energy facilities and the like, and appears that as of Thursday of last week, the Israelis have escalated to precision strikes aimed to kill the leadership of the Houthis, a tactic we've seen elsewhere. We've seen it against Hezbollah in Lebanon, against Hamas in Gaza, and indeed against members of the Iranian High Command and government back in June. So what we saw on Thursday was an attack on a gathering of ministers, Houthi ministers gathered to hear a speech, a televised speech by the supreme leader of the Houthis. Some 6 or 7 of them were killed, and today the funerals are underway with the Houthis vowing revenge for that precision strike in the capital of Yemen.
You also spoke there about what is happening with Hamas. We've also learned that Israel says it has killed quite a long-standing Hamas spokesperson. What do we know about that strike?
I'd say long-standing, certainly. This man has been around for about 15 years. He had a nom de guerre, Abu Ubaidah. That's how he was known. He was known and unknown because he would appear regularly on television with his face masked behind a traditional keffiyeh, only his eyes showing. I think this is part of his mystique, not just in the Arab world, but actually in some Western centers of support for the Palestinians. Indeed, you could often see his picture on T-shirts of anti-Israel protests in recent months during the Gaza war. Israel struck him, saying not only was he responsible for what the Israelis called psychological terrorism, for propaganda, but also that he was effectively a member of the high command of Hamas, a high command that is fast dwindling in size. His killing in Gaza City, no accident there. Gaza City is the last pocket of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, where the Israelis intend to invade in the coming days, they say. His killing, his removal, if confirmed, Hamas has not confirmed it yet, would leave only 2 or 3 senior members of Hamas to be engaged by the Israelis, at which point really the chain of command would have been demolished, though Hamas continues to fight and says it will fight on.
Dan, thank you for the updates. Dan Williams joining us from Jerusalem. Let's turn our attention to what is happening here in Europe. The German Chancellor has warned that the war in Ukraine will drag on and has no obvious end in sight. Speaking on German television, Friedrich Merz says he hasn't given up hope of a ceasefire, but he's, quote, not under any illusions either. Greg Sullivan, our Russia economy and government editor, joins us now. A very negative assessment from the German Chancellor. How widespread do you think amongst European leaders such a view is?
It's probably fairly widespread. I mean, in one sense, this was a negative assessment from the Chancellor, but on the other hand, it's actually quite clear-eyed. There have been successive rounds of negotiations between the two sides, and they've resulted in prisoner exchanges, not ceasefires. And on the ceasefire front, it looks like they're no closer to stopping the fighting. Putin has held to maximalist demands that Ukraine is unlikely to accept. The Kremlin has given no indication that it is ready to halt the fighting or has any interest in it, in short of a Ukrainian surrender. And Ukraine is just not ready to surrender. For them, this is an existential fight. They've been clear that they do not want to cede sovereignty or territory to Russia, so the fighting continues. With no near ceasefire in sight, that means that these comments actually are not that surprising.
Greg, thank you for the update. Greg Sullivan on the latest from Friedrich Merz. Coming up, we're going to continue the theme. The EU Commission says Ursula von der Leyen's plane has been affected by suspected Russian GPS jamming. We'll get the latest from Brussels next. This is Bloomberg.
Morning, this is Bloomberg Daybreak Europe. I'm Tom McKenzie in London. These are the stories that set your agenda.
Taking you from the U.S. market's close to the overnight session in Asia, we'll walk you through what you need to know to kickstart Europe's trading day. Live from our European headquarters, we bring you the day's top market-moving stories, unmatched expert analysis, and on-the-ground reporting from across the continent. Tune in to Daybreak Europe, only on Bloomberg Television. Context changes everything. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. We'll show you what's happening in ETFs like no one else. ETF IQ, only on Bloomberg.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets? We are basically deep in the European earnings season.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
It's the world's second-largest economy with a growing influence in global affairs. Bloomberg The China Show brings you the unmatched expertise you need to keep track of breaking news, in-depth market analysis, and the most influential newsmakers in and around China.
We need to do more to engage the market more. We're risk on. I think we caught a little sweet spot.
Massive savings right now.
It's already a different game.
Bloomberg The China Show. Weekdays around the world, right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute geopolitical news wherever and whenever it happens. I'm Anne-Marie Hordern in Alberta, Canada, and this is Bloomberg.
Welcome back. We have learnt that the European Commission is indicating that President Ursula von der Leyen's plane has been affected by suspected Russian GPS jamming. The incident apparently took place yesterday over Bulgaria. Joining us now to discuss is Suzanne Lynch, Bloomberg's Brussels bureau chief. Suzanne, a fairly alarming story. What do we know?
Yeah, details of this are just emerging now, and it looks like the plane carrying the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was landing in Bulgaria on Sunday, and there was a GPS jamming incident that Bulgarian authorities are saying is the work of Russia. Now, the plane did land safely, we're told, and the President of the Commission continued her business in Bulgaria, but it looks like that some of the GPS navigation systems were disabled in some way. The landing did take place safely, as I say, but we're awaiting more details of this now in the next 10 or 15 minutes here when the European Commission is due to give a briefing here in Brussels.
That takes us on to our next story. The EU planning to boost defence investments, looking at plans to act more swiftly when it comes to foreign policy as well. What do we know about this? Because this goes to the heart of the kind of the Draghi criticism and so much of the criticism that we've been hearing.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, speaking of this GPS jamming incident that we're hearing about now, I mean, it's ironic that this happened when von der Leyen, the European Commission President, was on a tour this weekend of 7 Eastern countries that are quite close to the Ukraine-Russia war. And I think this is a kind of a show of strength by the European Commission, showing that the European Union is behind not just Ukraine, but also but behind its member states, those most exposed when it comes to defence. Now, as you say there, the European Union has been lagging behind when it comes to defence spending and defence capabilities. Things have improved, so we've seen that commitment to spend 5% of GDP on defence that was agreed at the NATO summit in June. Now, von der Leyen was touting, and will be today, she's continuing her voyage across Eastern Europe today in Lithuania and Romania, but she's been touting this 150 billion euro lending programme that the European Commission has established, and that's allowing countries, 19 have applied so far, to access this money at favourable interest rates, which will help them then build up their defence capabilities. So that's a central strand of the European Commission's strategy when it comes to try and up its defence spending in Europe.
All of this, I'm sure, is going to be covered in the new newsletter. It's not a new newsletter. We've had a newsletter. It's just a new and improved newsletter. Looking forward to it. What should we expect?
Yes, this is our Brussels edition newsletter that issues each day here from Brussels. So we're relaunching today. It comes into people's inboxes in the afternoon for those of you in Europe and those viewers in the US and further afield throughout the day. And look, this newsletter aims to bring you the latest news and analysis from the heart of the EU here in Brussels. As we know, as we've just been discussing, Brussels and Europe is finding itself increasingly at the centre of some of the big geopolitical and economic stories, be it in defence and foreign policy or economics and particularly trade. So our Brussels edition newsletter, anchored by myself each day, will bring readers the latest from Brussels, the latest from across Europe, and highlight some of those scoops and analysis that we're generating here each day in Brussels in our bureau at the heart of Europe.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be great. Suzanne, thank you very much indeed. Suzanne Lynch, our Brussels Bureau Chief. And you can sign up to the New Look Brussels edition newsletter, of course, at bloomberg.com/newsletters. Just staying with the geopolitical story and the defence theme, I just want to kind of round it all up. Norway has picked the UK to supply frigates for its navy. It's a £10 billion deal, the Nordic nation's biggest ever investment in its defence. Amongst the NATO members that border Russia, Norway had also considered France and Germany and the United States for the contracts. Delivery of the British Type 26 frigates. These are vessels specifically designed to detect, track down and combat submarines. Will start in 2030. Remember, we've had a whole series of incidents in terms of cables being attacked, and this is a key area in which Russian submarines also operate as well. So a really interesting development there on the geopolitical front. And BAE Systems has had a very solid day on the back of that news, which takes me to the markets. As we wrap things up, 56 minutes past the hour, let me just give you an idea of where we currently sit. As you can see, a reasonable amount of green on the screen. Cross-asset right now, the stock 600 is up by around 0.2%, brushing off some of the tech difficulty we saw at the back end of last week. US futures are higher. Remember, they're closed today for the Labour Day holiday. Silver's having a very solid session, north of 40, taking gold along for the ride. And euro-dollar with some solid PMI data, 117.21 is where we are currently trading. That wraps up things for this hour, but stay tuned. Tom McKenzie will continue the conversation next. Stay with us for that. This is Bloomberg.
For Trung Jubin, you're never too young to learn AI. That's why he's urging the government for school kids as young as 6 to be taught how to use it.
Within this system, from first grade, they all start with the AI education. They play 4 years, just playing. And then from 5th grade, they start to develop AI by themselves. And STEMs and robotics, I see very clearly how Vietnam should be in future. Vietnam just about 100 million people, young people, good educations, and latest technology. That's the only way to go. Education not contribute much profit for equity, but from the country point of view, that's most useful contribution what equity should do. And today we're thinking about every kids, not in cities like Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, but kids in the countryside should got the good education. That's what we're going to do now.
So you're leapfrogging?
Yes, exactly.
Astonishing day for US technology.
Shaping the region's technology ecosystem.
Asia's biggest tech news and innovation.
Bringing you up-to-the-minute economic news whenever and wherever it happens. I'm Francine Lacqua in Sintra, Portugal, and this is Bloomberg.
Welcome to Bloomberg Markets. I'm Tom McKenzie in London. Coming up, markets facing a critical 2-week stretch ahead with key reads on the US economy leading up, of course, to the Fed's next rate decision. And the French political crisis deepens with the Prime Minister set for high-stakes talks with Parliament to save his government. As Chinese President Xi Jinping boosts ties with Russia and India in the wake of US tariffs. And we begin this hour in Tianjin, China, where President Xi is wrapping up a 3-day summit featuring Russian President Putin and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Bloomberg's Min Min Lo is on the ground in Tianjin, just south, of course, of Beijing. Min Min, talk us through what has been achieved at this meeting, the key takeaways when it comes to the relationship, particularly between Russia, India and China, these 3 key leaders.
Yes, certainly one of the most iconic images we have seen out of the SCO summit so far is that a picture of Xi, Modi and Putin laughing together. It's sort of this energy triangle that has emerged after the Ukraine war. And today, Modi and Putin had a bilateral meeting. It was excellent, according to Modi, where they discussed the deepening of bilateral ties in every sector, from trade to security to space to fertilizers. Modi even inviting Putin to visit at the end of the year. That's taking place in December. And this coming as India's state-owned oil company is saying it will continue to buy every drop of oil available from Russia as long as it remains economical. So India is still remaining defiant despite the punishment from Trump imposing this additional 25% tariffs on India, and perhaps it's precisely because of that is pushing India and Russia even closer together.
And Min Min, on the deal-making front, what have we learned in terms of transactions at all levels during this meeting?
Yeah, there is a slew of bilateral meetings. Putin and Xi are going to meet tomorrow. Whether or not there will be deals out of that remains to be seen. But one of the things that President Xi mentioned in his speech earlier, he talked about pledging to increase the capacity for solar and wind energy for SCO countries by 10 million kilowatt over the next 5 years.